First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to acknowledge my little sister? This situation is so disgusting, but here we go. My mother-in-law hooked up, she claims it was only once, with my father at a pre-wedding celebration. My parents have a dead marriage, and my in-laws are hot and cold about each other. I don't think there were any feelings, but my dad is a huge creep, and she is from a race he has always fetishized, and mother-in-law acts out when things aren't about her. No one knew about the hookup, and everyone thought it was just a surprise baby at 42. Father-in-law ended up leaving her at the hospital because he said it looked like a white man's baby. She came home and admitted everything right in front of me. We lived with them at the time. And then said father-in-law cheated on her 12 years ago, and she always said he was going to know how it felt. The child is 7 now. She knows that my dad is her bio dad, and he sees her occasionally, but she is closer to father-in-law and calls him daddy. For some messed up reason, my in-law's marriage seems better than before, and my husband adores his little sister. I've never been a kid person, so I don't pay much attention to her, but it makes me uncomfortable when they use the word sister. Mother-in-law doesn't push her on me, but will say something like, ask your sister if she wants red wine or white, and it makes me so uncomfortable. I ask a mother-in-law not to use that word and to just refer to me as her brother's wife, but she said that would confuse sister-in-law. It makes me so uncomfortable that I share a sibling with my husband, and it isn't something people would expect because everyone involved is upper/middle class and respectable. My husband says that was a cold thing to ask mother-in-law, and I was being rude. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's a weird situation, and there's no right way to navigate it. You should all be compromising and respectful of each other's wishes. She's being raised by your husband's family and not yours, so makes sense she's more a sister to him and not to you. Mother-in-law doesn't get to determine the relationship you have to her, and if you rather see her as sister-in-law, that's okay, as long as you're kind to her and make sure she knows she's still your family. All true, but she can't make mother-in-law have her sister/sister-in-law. Man, what a confusing situation. Call anything, and biologically they're half-sisters. So I'm going not the a-hole, but don't see OP getting her way. Not the a-hole. The whole thing is bizarre. You have the right to enforce a boundary though. It's not either of your fault that mother-in-law decided to sleep with your father. She's being raised by mother-in-law and father-in-law. You're her sister-in-law, brother's wife, and just exile it to her. Asking them not to call you sister is reasonable, as long as you're not mistreating her. At some point, there will be questions. Why are my brother and sister married? Is that normal? They're going to have a lot of explaining to do. Not the a-hole. That sounds like some crazy soap opera. What does your mom feel about this? I think that you could ask if you two could just call each other by first names and not stress the sister part because, yeah, it's really weird. My mom is extremely angry, but will never leave my dad because she doesn't work. What makes it worse is mother-in-law had been rude to her in the past, and then said it was my mom's fault for letting herself go. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to talk to the woman responsible for my parents' divorce? When I was 10, my parents divorced. It was very messy. I didn't know at that time, but they had a real Charles Diana Camilla thing going on, and after years of watching my dad love another woman, my mother finally cracked and divorced him. It was acrimonious, and it did a lot of damage to me that I'm working out in therapy. My father married his mistress 30 days after the divorce between him and mom was made final. Ultimately, Angie couldn't handle things. My parents' friends and my mom badmouthed her in our small town. I was a little craphead. My dad's parents and family were awful to her. She was put through the ringer, and the marriage fell apart after 2 years. I never saw her after that. My dad never really moved on from Angie. Turns out, he really loved her. I'm now in my 20s, and my therapist suggested I talk to the people in my life connected to the divorce. My father was happy to talk. Mom was reticent. I found Angie. She lives a town over. I sent her a message on Facebook asking to speak. She declined me. I sent another, messaging in greater detail explaining why I wanted to speak, and that I hold nothing against her any longer, that I'm just looking for closure, and I think she could be helpful. Once again, Angie declined to speak to me. She told me she had managed to move on, and she wasn't interested in rehashing the past. I told her talking to me was the least she could do to help me move on, since she was partially the cause of my childhood trauma. Angie blocked me. As a last-ditch effort, I went to her house. She's in the phone book. Her address is public. Angie wouldn't answer the door and threatened to call the cops if I didn't leave her alone. I don't understand why she won't talk to me. I'm just asking for a little help, a little clarity. She was instrumental in the downfall of my parents' marriage and a catalyst for an incredibly bad divorce. I feel like she owes me a little. Just a little. Am I the a-hole for trying to talk to Angie? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Angie owes you nothing. Leave the poor lady alone. Honestly, I might get downvoted for this, but I agree that OP has no sense of boundary. The first message should have been the last. Also, I'm kinda glad she didn't have the happy ending she envisioned when she cheated with a married man who has a child. Edit. I read through OP's comment, and the whole situation is a crap show. Like OP's dad really wanted to eat his cake and have it. Shaking my head. Angie was a victim of OP's dad, and in a way, so was OP's mom, though she's still a massive a-hole for the way she handled everything when she was aware of how things were. You're the a-hole. You wouldn't be the a-hole if you just reached out to her and asked, but you did. She said no, as was her right, and then you continued to pester her. She has every right to not want to talk to you. But then, I want to be clear about how utterly horrendous this part is. You went to her house. Holy crap, you're the a-hole. Going to her house was a complete a-hole move. That's so creepy. You're the a-hole. You were okay to reach out on Facebook, but you really took things too far when you went to her house. She obviously didn't want to reconnect, and you were not considerate of her feelings. You needed to respect her wishes. I think the first message on Facebook was okay. The second was pushing it. Beyond that, OP's actions were wildly inappropriate. Now, for the next story. Am I the a-hole for saying I'm a better dad this time around? My daughter took it the wrong way. I was 28 and my ex-wife was 27 when we had our daughter, 26. Our son was born 3 years later. We were both young and saddled with financial problems. I was working 80+ hours weeks to climb the ladder and to at least make my expensive degree worth it. My ex-wife and I fought all the time because I felt pressured to marry after she got pregnant, and I felt she could have worked more. Therefore, growing up, my 2 older kids did have to experience me coming home at 10 p.m., missing award ceremonies, and canceling vacation plans. I also find it crazy how I berated my kids for academic performance, in a way I could never imagine doing so now. I fought with my ex-wife about money, and would sometimes return clothes she bought for the kids when I saw they came from department stores, rather than stores with target-level affordability, because I didn't get why kids needed that. I also took arguments into screaming matches and left in a very bad way. I admit I have a strained relationship that I'm now repairing with my kids. My daughter now comes over to the house I share with my new wife a couple times a month, and sometimes stays over. My wife, 28, just gave birth a year ago. I'm now in a high-level position at my company, so I can step out whenever and get myself days off, so I like planning fun activities and surprising my wife with going shopping or date night. When my daughter is here, I invite her to come along if we're doing something family stuff. Her attitude varies a lot, but I let it go because she's getting therapy and treats her 1-year-old brother well. However, yesterday we all went shopping and my wife is in the process of remodeling our son's room. My daughter kicked up an attitude when my wife wanted to go to the home section of Bloomingdale's and pick out items. She also wanted to buy some new clothes. When my wife was out of earshot, my daughter asked why she needed to buy kid stuff from an upscale department store, and the baby wouldn't remember the clothes ever. I had the same argument when I was younger, but I learned that sometimes it doesn't matter what I think works, and I'd rather just make my wife happy. So I told her to stop bringing up the age-old arguments about upscale goods. Then I told her that I thought the same way as her in the past, but I've learned a lot about compromise over the years. I then mentioned that I feel happy for a chance to do it right this time, and I'm a better dad this time around. And this was a new beginning, a second chance. She immediately teared up and said, "Congrats, guess you changed." She wouldn't accept my explanation that included being a better dad to her too, and ended up Ubering back to her apartment. Am I the a-hole? This statement was meant to say I've done wrong and I'm doing better, but she's acting like I mortally insulted her in some way. She now refuses to respond to any form of outreach by me. Now for the top comments. I fought with my ex-wife about money and would sometimes return clothes she bought for the kids when I saw they came from department stores rather than stores with target-level affordability, because I didn't get why kids needed that. You're the a-hole. You are such a hypocrite. Your current wife buys from the department store and you said nothing. Yet, you rather disparage your daughter for bringing up the past. You didn't change. You are still the same a-hole. Replying to you because you're the top post. But holy crap, I feel so bad for the daughter, and also the son. Daughter got an absent dad, and when he was present, he sounds like he was a verbally abusive dad. Example, the schoolwork part. 2 resentful parents. Both parents fighting all the time, which from personal experience does a number on you. Being poor is equal to not being able to afford stuff like decent clothes. And if that wasn't bad enough, now she gets to see her dad be a good dad to her much younger sibling? Talk about putting salt in an open wound. I would definitely be thinking that my dad was capable of being a decent dad all this time, but never bothered with me. Man, this is heartbreaking. You're the a-hole. You did, in fact, mortally insult both your children and your ex-wife. I understand how things unfolded, but you'd be a willfully ignorant a-hole to ignore the obvious hurt your actions have caused. You went and created a replacement family, let alone one you're willing to spoil, without actively trying to connect with your older children now. Just letting them into your home and onto activities isn't enough. That's shallow. They may crave forming a relationship with you as their father, or they don't. And if they don't, then it's their right to step away from you, and all the hurt your actions played part in causing them. You're the a-hole. You were a crappy, absent parent the first time around. You're lucky your kids even speak to you. And now they get to watch you be a good, hands-on, present father with their sibling. You think they're supposed to be happy watching what they missed out on? You couldn't change for them, but you can change for your third child? Please, tell us in detail how this is supposed to make your older 2 children feel happy and loved and secure. I would love to know your reasoning here. You skipped out on them and started over with your shiny new family. Not to mention the fact you married a woman only 2 years older than your daughter. How exactly have you changed into a better father for your older 2 children? In what ways have you acknowledged the pain that you caused them? What is the genuine apology you have proffered, and the reparations you have at least attempted to make? You don't get to do this. You don't get to go out after neglecting your older 2 children and start a brand new family. Then expect them to smile about it and play like everything was always okay. How are you not the a-hole here? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy stuff for my step-siblings? I, 16 female, work, and I buy most, if not all, the food I eat. I also get to buy video games and things like that when something good comes out. I don't ever have to ask my dad or his wife for money. But sometimes, my step-siblings, step-sister 15 female and step-brother 14 male, will ask me for money, or for some of the food I bought, or they'll want me to buy them a video game. I have always said no, and now that they're both technically old enough, I tell them to babysit or get some kind of job where they can pay for that stuff. My dad's wife doesn't like it. She says what's mine is technically hers and my dad's, and it should be shared. I told her I work for it though, and I've worked in some capacity since I was 14, and I sometimes got money when I was 13 to pick up groceries for a neighbor, which I started doing to help her out, but she would pay me a little sometimes. She went on about family again, and then my dad told me it was selfish of me not to be more inclusive of my siblings. He and I talked one-on-one where I told him we weren't siblings, that they only wanted something from me because I have money and they don't. But they never gave a crap about us being a family either. We have never acted or lived as a family. Before this stuff really got annoying, we lived as 2 separate families. And once my step-sibling started asking my dad, and his wife started acting like we were siblings who'd known each other a long time. But even now it has only been 3 years since I first met her kids and her. They were together 2 years before they got married, and we weren't introduced before then. My dad still thinks I should consider them my family and should be more selfless and loving because we'll always be in each other's lives. And he was mad that I didn't consider them family because he said step-family is still family. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are not obligated to share possessions you've paid for yourself, or give them the money you've earned. This would be the same, even if they were full siblings. If your stepmom and dad don't want them to earn their own money, they should be the ones to buy them what they want. Not the a-hole. Whether step-families are immediate families or not is a whole different debate. But you absolutely should not be expected to spend your hard-earned money or share your personal belongings with anyone, full-blood siblings included. Not the a-hole. Even if you were a biological family or you felt yourselves as a real family, you still didn't have to give them your money. It is your money that you worked for it, and you should be able to spend it as you like. And since they are able to work, they should work for themselves if they need money. Not the a-hole. But I hope you have a bank account without anyone else's name on it. There are plenty of stories where parents have drained their kids' accounts. If your dad is on the account, I would find a completely new bank and open an account there, as it's nearly impossible to remove someone from an account, then close the old account. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.